To him, I'm not a victim. I'm the person who sent him to prison for something he enjoyed doing, something he doesn't see wrong or immoral. In his mind, he truly believes that children enjoy being abused by monsters like him. He truly believes that a child whom he groomed and carefully manipulated consented to engaging in acts with him. He still believes I enjoyed years of abuse by him, and that's what makes him dangerous.
Those are the words of the survivor standing up for the umpteenth time to tell the parole board not to release this monster. Now, this case, it is sickening. This monster has a website up today petitioning the public saying, I am innocent. I was wrongfully convicted in a trial by a judge. And do you know what that said judge did? Even though it was this Chomo's second time being convicted of doing this to little ones while he was still on probation for his first offense, a judge still only sentenced him to 20 years in prison. But no, it wasn't really 20 years in prison, all suspended but 12. And here he is up for parole, even though he was only sentenced 5 years ago. You can't make it up. But wait, I'm not done. To add even more insult to injury, this repeat convicted Chomo ranks out as a 0 on the static 99, a low risk to reoffend. Make it make sense. Why is it those placed in charge to protect us, why are they so utterly incompetent? Why are they so blind to the realities of what these monsters are? Now, he opts to use an interpreter. It clearly, you can see by him responding before the interpreter speaks that he does not need it, but we so often see Chomos do that as a way of further manipulation on the taxpayer dollar, buying them an extra few seconds to respond. There are parts of the hearing where I remove the interpreter's interpretation, and especially during the victim impact statement. Please keep that in mind. But for now, let's jump in.
Andrés Carrasco, 91, 43, 0491.
Thank you. This hearing is being conducted in consideration for a parole application for Andres Carrasco, 420491. He is serving a sentence of 20 years execution, suspended after 12 years to 15 years of probation for sexual assault, third degree, and illegal sexual contact. As of today, records reflect the parole eligibility date of September 14, 2024. There is victim input in this case. There is an offender accountability plan for the offender. It has been reviewed and it shows the offender has completed the following programs: problem sexual behavior short track, utilizing a statewide collaborative offender risk evaluation system scores. The offender's overall score for recidivism rating falls in the low range. There's also a static 99 score of 0, which falls in the low range. This is your opportunity to express to the board why you believe you should be granted parole. You may begin.
Go ahead, sir.
Puede comenzar.
Bueno, si me dan la oportunidad de libertad condicional, pues está bien, porque yo solamente quiero ver a mi mamá, mi familia que está afuera, y quiero seguir el caso porque todo es una mentira eso.
If I have the opportunity, I would like to be released because I want to see my mother and also my family who are outside waiting for me.
Okay, thank you. We do have questions for you. When we're done with our questions, we'll hear from the Office of Victim Services. Are you ready for our questions, sir?
¿Está listo para nuestras preguntas, señor?
Sí.
Okay, we'll begin with my colleague, Ms. Smith-Palmieri.
Thank you. Good morning, Mr. Carrasco. I wanted to start with talking about the offense itself. So I read in your sex offender evaluation that you deny committing the offense. Yet when I read the summary from your treatment, there's no indication that you deny committing the offense. So what is your position? You take responsibility for the offense or you do not?
¿Me lo puedes decir en español? Niego por eso.
Discúlpame.
Niego por eso.
I denied.
Okay,
Please. That's it.
all right, thank you. So why do you think that the victim is confusing you with your brother?
¿Por qué usted piensa que la víctima lo está confundiendo con su hermano?
Con mi hermano.
With my brother.
Yo nunca he dicho que me estoy confundiendo con mi
Uncle,
hermano.
excuse me, I misspoke. Uncle, confusing you with her other uncle.
Que lo está confundiendo con su otro tío.
No, nunca,
El otro
nunca.
tío, con el otro tío de la víctima, que lo está confundiendo con el otro tío de la víctima.
El otro tío de la víctima. Yo soy el único hombre en la familia. Mi hermano,
Uncle.
no, tengo otro hermano, se llama Hugo, pero él vive por Massachusetts.
I am the only male in the family. I have a brother, but he's in Massachusetts.
Okay, because the documents that I reviewed indicate that you stated the victim is confusing you with her other uncle who left for Peru.
Ustedes tienen que preguntar a la víctima cuál otro banco. Yo tengo un hermano nada más, pero él es una persona tranquila, él nunca cometió nada.
You have to ask the victim. I only have one brother, but he's a quiet person.
Okay, all right, so we'll move on. So you have a prior conviction for risk of injury, which was a sexual offense. And you participated in sexual offender treatment while you were on probation. While you were participating in that treatment, you're accused of this new offense. When you were in treatment, did you learn any strategies or ways to conduct yourself to avoid these situations?
Pero puede traducir en español, por favor. Yo nunca he tenido ofensa con ninguno de mi familia, ni en Perú, que yo vine a los 28 años, nunca he tenido problema. La persona que me está calumniando, ella sabe cuál es el problema. Ella sabe cuál es el problema. Ella tuvo un novio, un ecuatoriano, que se estaba escapando para Nueva York, que cuente toda la verdad. Toda mi familia sabe el caso. Que hable la verdad ella, que hable sus hermanos, su familia.
I have never offended against anyone of my family, and I came here from Peru when I was 28 years old. And the person accusing me of this, she knows the problem. She had a boyfriend from Ecuador, and she knows what happens. Tell her to tell the truth. Everyone knows what happened.
Que ella cuente que se estaba escapando para Ecuador con un muchacho. ¿Por qué no cuenta toda la verdad ella?
She was trying to escape to Ecuador with her boyfriend. She needs to say the truth.
Y ella pensó que yo le he dicho a mi familia que se estaba escapando.
She thought that I told her family that she was going to escape.
Porque yo le dije, porque ella me pidió un celular, yo le regalé un celular, que hablé del celular. Y cuando tuvo el novio, yo le dije, ¿vas a estudiar o qué voy a hacer? Si ya tienes novio, me vete a trabajar entonces, le dije. Y ahí fue donde se amargó y lo saqué de mi casa, le dije que se vaya. Delante de toda mi familia, le dije que se vaya. Su mamá sabe todo el caso, mis hermanas, todos saben. Que ella hable. A ver, ¿por qué no cuenta la verdad? O si no, vamos al detector de mentiras. Los dos.
Señor Carrasco, un momento, por favor. She was trying to go to Ecuador with her boyfriend, and she asked me for a cell phone. I gave her a cell phone, and then I kicked him out of the house. And then her mom and her sister know what's going on. Tell her to tell the truth.
Ella pensó que yo le había dicho a su mamá que ella se estaba escapando con ese muchacho, cuando yo no sabía nada. Y la hermana fue que le dijo a la mamá que ella se estaba escapando con un muchacho. Y ella pensó que yo le había dicho a su mamá. Y eso fue la cólera que tuvo conmigo ella.
She thought that I was the one who told her mother that she was going to escape with her boyfriend, but it was her sister, and that's why she was angry with me.
Okay, let's move on. So, Mr. Carrasco, you've participated in sex offender treatment twice now, once on probation previously and while you've been incarcerated. Is there anything that you've learned from either one of those times in treatment that could lead you, that you can recognize things you may have done that contributed to being convicted of these offenses?
Sí, porque a uno le pide que uno vaya para ese programa, entonces, si no lo mandan preso, entonces uno tiene que hacer el programa. Y justo el día que yo iba a terminar el programa, ella llama al oficial de Parole, y el oficial de Parole no le creyó a ella, me dejó salir a mí. Le dijo que no, que era una mentira, le dijo. Ella sabe todos los casos.
Yes, because they ask you to do programming, and then you have to do it. And then she even called the parole officer on my last day of the program, and the parole officer didn't believe her. She knows it.
So is there anything that you can think of that you've learned from either time you've taken the sex offender treatment program that will help you avoid these situations in the future?
Bueno, lo único que yo he aprendido aquí, las clases que te dan, que uno tiene que cambiar, que hacer muchas cosas. Pero yo nunca he tenido un problema sexual ni en mi país ni aquí, con nadie. Con nadie. Y cuando salgo, tengo que seguir el caso hasta el último, a ver hasta dónde llega ese caso. Porque no es justo que me manden preso por algo que no he hecho, porque solo una persona dice que sí, él ha hecho esto, y yo no lo he hecho. Si me dan la oportunidad para salir, bien, gracias, pero y si no, también. Yo tendré un día que voy a salir de todas maneras.
Yeah, there's some things that you learn that you have to change. But honestly, I never had any type of problems before sexual offenses. And it is not fair for me to be in prison for something that I didn't do just because someone says so. If I am rented, that's fine. And if I am not, it's okay. I'll be released one day, and I will fight the case.
Okay. Well, Mr. Carrasco, we had really hoped that you would be able to identify one or two characteristics, situations to avoid that would help you in the back when you're back in the community, avoid finding yourself in another situation like this. I mean, you deny this, but you were convicted at trial. So there needs to be things that you should have learned to help you avoid these situations in the future. You have support in the community with your mother?
My mother, my kids, my brother,
Okay.
all my family, that's with me.
Okay.
All right, thank you. I have nothing.
Thank you. Mr. Carrasco, do you admit to committing the previous sexual offense?
Mr. Carrasco, ¿usted admite haber cometido la ofensa sexual previa, anterior a esta?
No, nunca, ni aquí ni en mi país, en ningún sitio. No me gusta eso, tengo hijas.
Okay, so why would two different family members make up stories, lie about you sexually assaulting them?
Entonces, ¿por qué dos distintos miembros de la familia lo acusan de agredirlo sexualmente? ¿Por qué?
Usted dice la familia, pero no es la familia, es ella nada más. Su hermano, su hermana, nadie me acusa. ¿Quién está con ella? Nadie.
From the family, it's only her, nobody else.
Ella lo que siempre le ha gustado es el dinero. Ella piensa que le van a dar dinero o algo, yo no sé cuál es el pensamiento de ella. Tienen que preguntar a mi familia, a mis hermanas, a su mamá, a su hermano.
She only
A
likes,
todos.
she only likes money. I don't know what she was thinking. You can ask her family.
Okay, so your conviction for risk of injury, the previous one in 2013, did not involve a family member?
Su previa acusación de riesgo de lesión o de daños en el 2013 no involucra a un miembro de la familia.
No. El muchacho que hizo eso, ella sabe, se fue para Perú. No está acá, se fue. Cuando hizo eso, se fue.
The one who did that, he left to Peru. He's not here. He left.
Yeah, I'm not sure if you're in denial or you just don't want to talk about it. Maybe you don't want your family to know the issues that you have, but you've created a lot of damage within your family.
Yo no sé si usted está en negación, si es que no quiere hablar acerca de lo que sucedió, para que su familia no lo sepa, pero usted creó mucho daño a su
No,
familia.
no, no. Créanme.
And you don't appear to be able to answer our questions here today.
Y usted no aparenta estar dispuesto a contestar nuestras preguntas hoy en el día de hoy.
Yo le estoy contestando las preguntas, pero quieren que yo le diga algo que yo no he hecho.
I am answering your questions, but you want me to say something that I didn't do.
The home that you want to go live in, is it the same one that you were living in prior to incarceration?
El lugar donde usted quiere ir a vivir es el mismo lugar donde usted vivía previo a ir a prisión.
Donde yo vivía,
Es el mismo lugar a donde usted piensa ir.
a New Haven. No le entiendo, me dicen en la prisión. Estoy acá en la prisión yo.
In prison.
Before you went to prison, you lived with your mother, correct?
Antes de ir a prisión, usted vivía con su mamá.
Are you going back to the same house?
Usted va para la misma casa.
Pues mi mamá quiere que yo vaya para allá, mi familia quiere que vaya para allá, o yo puedo ir a otro sitio, buscar un apartamento o lo que sea.
My mom wants me to, and my family wants me to go back, but I can find my own apartment.
It was a question. The answer is yes or no. I want to know if it's the same house.
Bueno, si me aprueban ustedes, si me aprueban, and you approve for live with my mother's house, it's okay. If no, I need to look for another place.
Okay, yeah, okay. Thank you. Mr. Sarko?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Just a quick question, if you don't mind. Good morning, Mr. CARRASCO. In 2014, you were on probation for risk of injury offense. And as part of that probation, you were doing treatment, sex offender treatment in the community. Do you remember that?
Yeah.
Well, as part of that treatment, you were administered what is called instant polygraph. That was in May of 2014, and you were found not credible. Why do you think that is?
En la prueba que le hicieron en el año 2014, cuando usted estaba en probatoria, le hicieron un polígrafo y encontraron que usted no era creíble. ¿Por qué usted cree que fue esto?
¿Que no era qué?
Que no era creíble en la prueba de polígrafo.
Si no fuera creíble, entonces ¿cómo me dejaron salir con comprobación?
If he was not credible, why I was placed on probation.
He was on probation, right?
If it's not credible, what?
Why was he released on probation? It was during probation. Okay, all right, so at this point, sir, we're gonna ask the Office of Victim Services to provide input for us, and I'll ask you to please not interrupt at all. You can listen, but don't speak.
Vamos a pasar con la Oficina de Servicios a la Víctima. Le voy a pedir que no interrumpa en este momento, solamente puede escuchar.
Ms. Hamlet-Williams, thank you for joining us.
Thank you so much. Good morning, Madam Chair. Good morning, panel. I do have the victim who is with us today to address the board, but I wanted to ask, would we need her to first give her statement in English and then Spanish, or Spanish and then English?
Can you interpret her statement?
I don't have it, but
There was no written statement because there's no written statement
Okay.
because she's joining us All
right, so we'll just ask that you pause so that our interpreter can translate, please, at certain points. Thank you.
Okay,
We can do that. Thank you.
okay. You may begin at any time. Please remember to keep your statements directed to the board members and not to the inmate. You can speak about him, just not directly to him. Okay?
Okay,
may
you
begin.
you need me to pause for interpretation as I speak?
Yes.
Please.
Good morning, all. My name is Vanessa Suarez, and I am here today to share why Andres Carrasco should not be granted parole under any circumstances. Frankly, I did not expect to be here today because the defendant does not deserve to be considered for early release or any form of conditional release. He has served about halfway through his 12-year sentence, but not a single day has gone by since the defendant has atoned for the years of abuse I suffered. Instead, the defendant has gone out of his way to appeal the conviction for which we are here today in both criminal and civil courts. He has failed at every turn. In 2020, he was denied the bail motion pending his appeal. In 2021, he lost the first criminal appeal. And in 2024, he lost the second appeal at the Connecticut Supreme Court. In October of this year, we are scheduled to have a habeas trial, making it the first civil trial I am forced to undergo now that the defendant has exhausted all his criminal appeals. This is the third victim impact statement I've written because it's the only opportunity I have at voicing my safety concerns to the state, and because it's the only way I am allowed to advocate for myself. It is painful to be here today, to be summoned to hearings year after year because the defendant has resources, and with that, he has endless opportunities to fight this conviction. It is infuriating to witness the amount of opportunities he is granted to make his case and avoid accountability for the violence he committed. And it is beyond terrifying to live in a world that gives abusers, child predators, and rapists the benefit of the doubt time and time again. I'm here today to make sure that this panel does not give Andres the benefit of the doubt. I know that my absence in this process would result in the defendant receiving the benefit of the doubt, which is why I show up again and again, despite how re-traumatizing all of this is to me. While I feel my presence today and throughout this process does not feel optional to me, I want to make clear that I am not afraid to confront my abuser in legal proceedings. There is nothing he will do to me in a courtroom setting, virtual or in person, because that's not how he operates. He's the type to violate you when no one is looking, when your guard is down, when you've trusted him and are most vulnerable. That's what makes him a monster, and not just any monster, a dangerously sick and twisted monster. I don't need to be spared from seeing him in court. What I need is to be genuinely protected from him at all times, especially when he's released. What I need is an opportunity to rebuild my life. I have fought for this right, and I have earned it. What I need as a survivor is for Andres to want to heal, because only then will he be able to recognize what he did to me. And more importantly, recognize and heal his perversiveness. What I need is not an apology from Andres, rather a recognition that what he did was wrong, that he was wrong, and that everything he has done to cover up his abuse is wrong. What I need is for the legal system to understand how child sexual abuse and incestual abuse has deeply impacted me and my loved ones. And what I need more than anything is to be guaranteed that the state will do everything in its power to make sure Andres does not have any more victims. I have been in therapy since I was 16, and it has taken me all of those years to become profoundly aware and in touch with my story of abuse and how Andres broke me. It wasn't until last year that I began to understand my experience as not just a story of child sexual abuse, but also a story of incest. No one wants to talk about incest, including myself. The word alone generates thoughts of disgust and shame. It's no surprise it took me more than a decade to see myself as a victim of incest. I learned that incestual abuse is any relationship between family members, and that the victim is always the person that is being exposed to sexual relations without their knowledge or consent. The victim is the vulnerable person who is at risk of being manipulated. At 29 years old, I now realize I was the victim of incestual abuse and not by accident. Andres knew what he was doing when he exposed me to sexual acts starting at the age of 11. It was all premeditated abuse. I was just a child and he was a grown adult. He took advantage of my innocence and carefully planned how he would abuse me over the course of the years, manipulating me into thinking the sexual acts I was being forced to do were normal things between an uncle and his niece, exposing me to pornography to adultify me and further normalize his perverse sexual tendencies, and buying my silence with gifts and cash. From the outside looking in, it looked like I was one of his favorite nieces, whom he spoiled, when in reality, all the grooming was all meant to disguise the abuse. Everything he did to me was carefully thought out so that he could get away with abusing me, and so that I would accept incestual abuse as my new norm. He didn't just groom me to gain my complete trust and silence. He also groomed my extended family by carefully constructing a trustworthy image and relationship so that they would be unsuspecting of him. He manipulated every member of my family, who would have otherwise been my support network. This level of manipulation made it nearly impossible for me to open up to my family. He knew I had no one else to turn to, and no one who I could confide in because I couldn't even recognize the abuse I was going through. As painful as those memories are to revisit, I needed to recognize the incestual abuse Andres subjected me to. I needed to unmask the type of predator he was and still is. I needed to confront the numerous ways he manipulated me as a child and as his niece with the goal of normalizing incest. I needed to sit with the fact that the person who broke me in unimaginable ways was my mother's brother, whom we trusted and who I looked up to the most following my father's death. I don't have any sympathy or forgiveness for the defendant. All I have is the horrifying truth and the scars he left me with, which I will never finish healing from. Here's what you all should know. When a child experiences abuse by a close relative, everything within that child shatters. You lose your sense of self-worth and self-love. You stop believing in safety and in yourself. You lose your will to exist and love. You change for the worse and you isolate yourself from the world because you believe it's everyone against you. And you convince yourself that this is what living looks like. Having to defend yourself from everyone at all moments, because to be vulnerable means you will get taken advantage of. To experience incest is to live a betrayal that will never make sense. Not to me or my mom or any of my siblings. Incestual abuse forever impacts your ability to trust others, because if your own blood relative was capable of doing that to you, what can you expect of others? Incestual abuse doesn't just end on its own. It's a sickness that needs to be addressed from the root. The defendant could have sought help while he was free, but he chose not to. He could have addressed his sickness from the comfort of a therapist's office, but instead, Judge Allender sentenced him to prison, and that is where he deserves to stay until the day he actually confronts his sickness and the monster that he is. To this day, he has not admitted that he is guilty, nor has he acknowledged the harm caused to me and my family. I had hoped that his time behind bars and away from his family that covers up for him would help him come to terms with what he did, but that has not been the case. There are no conditions under which Andres can be released without endangering others. His family members continue to enable him and cover up for him. They're all committed to supporting him because it means rejecting the idea that the defendant is a child predator and that our family is in fact affected by incest and sexual abuse. Someone who is capable of manipulating other adults, or even worse, manipulating children for their own sexual pleasure should not be trusted. Someone who is unwilling to recognize the harm they have caused should not be given the opportunity to commit further harm. Andres abused 2 of his nieces and has accepted 0 accountability. If violating his underage nieces meant nothing to him, we cannot expect him to do better by anyone else. Instead of working to undo his sick tendencies, the defendant has spent every year behind bars fighting this conviction and being repeatedly denied. He has spent 6 years trying to convince anyone who will listen that what he did to me does not constitute a crime or a violation to my person, my safety, or autonomy. To him, I'm not a victim. I'm the person who sent him to prison for something he enjoyed doing, something he doesn't see wrong or immoral. In his mind, he truly believes that children enjoy being abused by monsters like him. He truly believes that a child whom he groomed and carefully manipulated consented to engaging in sexual acts with him. He still believes I enjoyed years of sexual abuse by him, and that's what makes him dangerous. The fact is, Andres is unwilling to accept he has an illness that leads him to abuse children, including his very own nieces. He has not accepted responsibility for what he did to me, nor has he pledged to not abuse any more children. So I ask you today to think of the children he's already harmed and the children he could continue to harm if he were to be released on parole. It's not just about protecting me. It's the state's duty to protect all of the children from sexual violence and incest. For that reason, I respectfully ask that you deny parole for Andres. Thank you for your time and consideration.
Thank you. Thank you for your statement. We certainly appreciate you coming forward and can't possibly imagine how difficult it is for you, but you're very brave. Mr. Carrasco, give us a few minutes to discuss your case and we'll come back to you shortly with our decision.
Mr. Carrasco, tenemos unos minutos para hablar acerca del caso y darle la decisión.
Ms. Smith-Palmieri?
Thank you. So, you know.
¿Qué cosa dijo? ¿Qué cosa dijo?
Can I say something?
No.
So for Mr. Carrasco, I think, you know, for me, it was very difficult to determine any offender change.
Right.
From today, even just some insight into how his behaviors maybe could have been misconstrued. Sometimes we see in the treatment that they are able to identify behaviors that they should avoid in the future for any kind of, this is,
I'll stop. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, go ahead.
For me, I go back to the sex offender assessment, where under the risk assessment, it indicates that he has minimal insight into his offense and behaviors and demonstrates victim blaming behavior and is unable to take accountability. And I think that's clear what we see today. So for today, I do not find Mr. Carrasco suitable for discretion and parole.
Thank you. Thank you. I think it's very unfortunate that Mr. Carrasco has not gained anything from the last 6 years of incarceration or the programming that he's completed. He continues to be in denial, and I certainly hope that his family will wake up and stop enabling this criminal behavior. I do not find him suitable, nor am I interested in rehearing this case. He has 15 years of probation, and I hope he'll use the next 5 years incarcerated and 15 years of probation to really work on himself, come out of denial, and get help. Mr. Sarkar.
I agree. I do not find Mr. Carrasco suitable.
Tampoco estoy de acuerdo en su salida en el día de hoy.
Okay, in the matter of Andres Carrasco, MA number 430491, I'll make a motion to deny parole for the following reasons. The nature and circumstance of your offenses, the injury and impact to the victim and the victim's family, and inadequate evidence of offender change. Is there anything further? Is there a second to the motion?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
This concludes the hearing.
Okay, sorry, can you just translate that part?
En el caso de Andrés Carrasco número 430491, hacemos una moción para negar su salida bajo libertad condicional en el día de hoy por las siguientes razones: naturaleza y daño, la naturaleza y circunstancia de la ofensa actual, evidencia inadecuada de cambio en el ofensor y daño e impacto a la víctima y familia de la víctima.
This concludes the hearing for Andre Carrasco 430491.
Esto concluye la audiencia de Andrés Carrasco número 430491.
Good luck to you, sir.
Buena suerte, señor.
¿Ya se acabó?
Sí, señor, todo ya terminó.
Está bien, gracias.
Thank you.
And this monster actually has a website that says free Andre, right? Free him. How could you sentence a man to 20 years in prison? This was written in May 2019. Andre is a hardworking father and humble and educated man, was sentenced to 20 years in prison on 3 felony charges relating to SA against a little one after a 6-day trial that cheated him out of his freedom. Can you imagine? Can you imagine that he went to trial, a 6-day trial, where the victims have to take the stand, where there's cross-examination, where there's scrutinization, a repeat offender, someone who was on probation, taking polygraphs for a prior offense. And he goes to trial, and the judge gives him a sentence of just 12 years in prison? Why? You know, it is sick. We live in a sick world. We live in a world where children do not matter. We live in a world where judges are so mentally ill that they will sentence a man after a trial, a repeat offender, an unapologetic monster. "20 years prison, but I'll suspend it." You really can't make this stuff up. And you know, this is his case is plastered all over the internet because of the number of appeals that he has. And you know, in Connecticut, the appeals are just a bit more sophisticated than what I'm used to with Louisiana. This is a 46-page document. And it's just one of the many documents. But look at this. The trial court sentenced the defendant to a total of 20 years incarceration, suspended after 15 years of probation. I mean, that's 8 years in prison. I don't even know. The date of sentence was 2019. His maximum release date is 2030. I don't know. I don't understand this, how the math is mathing here, but why the judge anyways would not sentence him to the ultimate maximum is barbaric. Then we have the insult to injury about the static 99. You heard what they said. He rates a 0. He is a 0. So he is a low risk to reoffend. Now, not only do we live in a system where a repeat chomo, he was convicted once already, he's out, and he does it again for years. He's doing it for years. And he goes to trial. He's sentenced, it seems, to just 12 years parole eligibility really just like 5 years into it. And then the brilliant PhDs will have the audacity to say he's a low risk to reoffend. This is the world that we live in, and it makes me scream. I scream, we scream together because it's seeing the most insane. The idea, it's not just Connecticut, it's almost all 50 states that use this insane static 99, which is a system created by entrepreneurs to make money by training DOCs to use this sophisticated piece of brilliance. How is he a zero? Well, it's very easy. Because he's the age, let's see, he's born in 70, so he's 55 years old. So he starts with a -1. -1, just because of his age. I mean, we all know that people, when they get older, they become less, Have you ever lived with a lover? Well, obviously, anybody who lives with lovers can never be Chomo, so he's a zero now. And then here's the part which I still don't know. But okay, we know he was convicted of a previous offense, so now he gets 1 point. Well, no, this would be any nonsense. So this was like CP, so there's no CP, so 0, 0. So he's still at 0. Actually, he's at -1. Now, how many times have you been charged with prior offenses? Now, because he is, yeah, I've been charged once before. I've been charged once before. He's still a 0. And any unrelated victims, look at this. Nope. He's only going to admit to having related victims. So because he says unrelated, he's still a 0. Any stranger victims? Nope. He's still a 0. You get it? They don't even know what they're talking about. Like, any male victims? No, he's still a 0. This is how he's a 0. So he can, even with their record, know that this is the second time he was caught doing it to years, relatives. He's a 0. So voila, he's a low risk to reoffend. Now, I just want to point something out, that had he had 4 prior sex offenses, 4. Let's say he had 4. And in 5 years from now, when he gets out of prison, he will be 60 in 2030. He could get 3 points for that, but because he is -3 for being 60, he's still a 0. So a serial predator, a serial chomo, if he had even 6 prior offenses, he would be considered a low because he would still only be 1 point. Guys, I don't know where to go with this anymore, but we need a loud enough megaphone, because this is not loud enough, to scream off the rooftops that these static 99s need to be ripped up. And I would argue anybody who is legislating them or whatever, lobbying them, people need to be prosecuted, because this is negligence. This is willful negligence by those in charge. I still don't know where to go with this. This website keeps just it's just the audacity, the absolute audacity. His defense attorney lied that he could persuade the judge to drop the case because he was neighbors with the judge, misleading Andres to take a trial by judge over trial by jury. It was a trial by judge, which is far less risky. In 2017, when Z accused Andres of bringing his, I don't even want to read this because this is all BS. I'm not going to read this. But do you know what they brought in as evidence? What part of his appeal was a journal? She kept a journal, which is the best evidence, frankly, that you can have, in my opinion, outside of the video. And even then, think about this. She had a journal which they brought in, which this little girl was writing in the journal. And part of his defense, his appeal, was that she never signed the journal. So how could you know it was her? I mean, you can't make this stuff up. This is the journal. I'm just so pissed off. Hey, let's see. Let's just see. Convicted of the crimes of SA, low risk, and risk of injury to child in connection is alleged. Why did they say alleged? Oh, this is the people writing the appeal, right? Okay, the defendant appealed, claiming that inter alia that he was entitled to the disclose of the content of certain handwritten journals authored by C because purportedly constituted statement under the relevant rule, blah, 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 blah. Prosecutors employed to review the journal exculpatory information. See revealed existence of journals for the first time at trial, so testifying that she created them in connection with the therapy she was receiving after and that they concerned her relationship with the defendant and that had inflicted, among other things. She admitted to defense counsel in cross-examination that she reviewed a few pages in one of her journals before testifying and that the journals were the best record. At the point of defense, the counsel requested the journals as discovery. Following the camera meetings, the defense counsel and the prosecutors at trial court summarized the discussions that occurred in the chambers in order the prosecutors to review the journals, receive statements about the allegation. Okay. It's just so much in here to read. I cannot understand how a judge doesn't give him the max penalty. A second-time offender. He was doing it for years. How many years was it? I think it was spanning from the court opinion sets forth the following facts that the trial court reasonably could have found procedure history when the complainant was 10 years old. She, along with her mother and siblings, moved into her grandmother's home shortly thereafter, and the defendant, the complainant's uncle, moved in at some point. During the time of the complainant, the defendants were living at the grandmother's house, and the defendant had the complainant apply. Okay. This type occurred more than 10 times over the next 2 years, from 10 to 12, 10 times for 2 years, and the judge felt that this was a long enough sentence. While the complainant lived at the grandmother's house and continued after she had moved to another house. Describing other instances of inappropriate behavior to the defendant, on one occasion, the defendant, while dressed in boxer shorts, went into the complainant's bedroom, got under the covers, and rubbed. You know, I'm this survivor left one of the most powerful impact statements. It really was. When I first listened to it, I was listening to it in the car, and I hope you guys don't mind what I did with the translation. I thought the translator just killed the energy of it. It was like slow, pause. Oh my god, I don't know, but I just removed it because I thought parts of it, and I hope that didn't. He understood every single word in English perfectly. He even forgot to hide it. He was responding before the translator could speak, and I thought at least the um, karma in that was that he had to listen to the victim impact statement twice from her and from the translator, which is great. He thought he'd being so. I'm so sick and tired of these monsters asking for translators, thinking it will give them some advantage on taxpayer dollars. It's pathetic. But she's standing here having her voice heard, and I don't think she'll know how many people will see this and be affected by it, but how many people she is talking for on their behalf, she being their voice. And she's just, she is the voice for so many, and not going to let this monster win. And it seems to me that a lot of the family members are still like, he was even going to go back to the same house, and he still has them wrapped around his manipulative, psychopathic, thumb. And shame on all of them. Shame on all of you. You are all just as culpable, and you're all pathetic. Um, but no matter what happens, he's out in 5 years, ladies and gentlemen. 5 years. And he's going to be with others that will give him more victims because they're enabling monsters as well. And I don't know what to say. I'll put links in the description. You know, this of course this whole thing is demonetized and can be blacklisted. Very few will see this because of the algorithm, what it will do to this hearing. But I do think that it will touch some people, and maybe it can even help save a few people, potential victims. Hopefully, you can do that. And I'll leave you with final words from the survivor. Okay. Those are the words of the survivor standing up for the umpteenth time to tell the parole board not to release this monster. Now, this case, it is sickening. This monster has a website up today petitioning the public saying, I am innocent. I was wrongfully convicted in a trial by a judge. And do you know what that said judge did? Even though it was this Chomo's second time being convicted of doing this to little ones while he was still on probation for his first offense, a judge still only sentenced him to 20 years in prison. But no, it wasn't really 20 years in prison, all suspended but 12. And here he is up for parole, even though he was only sentenced 5 years ago. You can't make it up. But wait, I'm not done. To add even more insult to injury, this repeat convicted Chomo ranks out as a 0 on the static 99, a low risk to reoffend. Make it make sense. Why is it those placed in charge to protect us? Why are they so utterly incompetent? Why are they so blind to the realities of what these monsters are? Now, he opts to use an interpreter. It clearly, you can see by him responding before the interpreter speaks that he does not need it, but we so often see Chomos do that as a way of further manipulation on the taxpayer dollar, buying them an extra few seconds to respond. There are parts of the hearing where I remove the interpreter's interpretation, especially during the victim impact statement. Please keep that in mind. But for now, let's jump in.
To him, I'm not a victim. I'm the person who sent him to prison for something he enjoyed doing, something he doesn't see wrong or immoral. In his mind, he truly believes that children enjoy being abused by monsters like him. He truly believes that a child whom he groomed and carefully manipulated consented to engaging in acts with him. He still believes I enjoyed years of abuse by him, and that's what makes him dangerous.